Think about how long you've been sitting right now, watching this. 10 minutes, an hour? That number matters more than you'd guess, because there are ordinary habits, ones you're probably doing right now without a second thought, that are quietly weakening the muscles in your legs. Not because of an injury, not because of arthritis, not because you've done anything wrong, just because of how you've structured an average day. And here's the part that should genuinely get your attention. New research has connected several of these exact habits to how long you actually live, not just how steady you are on your feet. Your legs hold the largest muscles in your entire body, more muscle mass than your arms, chest, and back combined. And when those muscles quietly shrink, it isn't just your knees and hips that pay the price. It's your ability to get up off a couch unassisted. It's your confidence walking down a flight of stairs. It's whether you're the one carrying your own suitcase at the airport or the one who needs help. And according to a growing stack of research coming out of some of the most respected institutions in the world, it may quietly be your lifespan as well. I want to walk you through 5 of these habits today, counting down from 5 to 1. Some of them will sound familiar, things you've heard mentioned before without ever hearing exactly why they matter. But the one at the very end, number 1, has almost nothing to do with exercise, diet, or anything you'd expect from a video about leg strength. And it may be the easiest one on this entire list to fix once you know it's happening. So stay with me until the end, because that last one changed the way I talk to my own patients about this topic entirely. Before we get into it, I want to ask you something personal. Drop your age in the comments below, whether you're 62, 74, 81, or somewhere else entirely, and tell me where in the world you're watching from. I read every single comment on this channel, every one of them, because this community means a great deal to me, and your story matters. So tell me, which of these 5 habits do you already suspect might be yours? Let me tell you about Carol first. Carol is 71, from a quiet neighborhood outside Tucson, and for the last few years she noticed her knees felt stiff by early afternoon and her legs felt heavier climbing into the car. Nothing that ever sent her to a doctor. Nothing that stopped her from doing what she needed to do. She assumed it was simply age catching up with her, the way it does with everyone eventually, and she quietly rearranged small parts of her life around it without ever naming what was happening. What she didn't realize was that she was doing one particular thing, every single day, for years that was actively working against her. It wasn't a dramatic habit. It wasn't something anyone would have flagged on a chart. It was something almost everyone reading this is doing too, right now without giving it a second thought. Here's the one you're probably doing right now. Number 5. Sitting in long, uninterrupted stretches, an hour or more at a time, without standing up in between. This is the habit most people already suspect is bad for them in some vague way. What most people don't know is exactly how specific and how fast the science says it happens. Researchers at Columbia University, publishing in the Annals of Internal Medicine, tracked nearly 8,000 adults over 45 using hip-mounted accelerometers, devices that measure movement directly, rather than relying on memory. Over roughly 4 years of follow-up, they found that people who kept their sitting stretches under 30 minutes at a time had meaningfully lower mortality risk than people who sat in long, unbroken blocks. And this held true regardless of how much they exercised elsewhere in the day. An active person who then sits still for 2 or 3 hours straight is not off the hook. Now here's the number that surprised me most when I first read it. Researchers at the University of Arkansas put a group of healthy, active older adults, people with no illness or injury at all, on strict bed rest for just 10 days. 10 days. Afterward, their leg strength had dropped by more than 15%, and the loss was concentrated almost entirely in the lower body. 10 days undid what can take months of consistent effort to rebuild. Your body doesn't wait for a diagnosis to start taking muscle away. It responds to stillness alone. Blood flow slows, muscle fibers stop firing, and your body reads that stillness as a signal that the muscle simply isn't needed, which over months and years is exactly the signal that leads to the kind of weakness so many people mistake for simply getting older. The practical fix isn't complicated. It's standing up for 60 to 90 seconds every 20 to 30 minutes, whether that's during a commercial break, a phone call, or between paragraphs of a book, paired with a few slow calf raises or knee lifts while you're up. But sitting isn't the only silent habit at play here. There's a second one, and it's the one most people don't realize they've stopped doing entirely. And here's the one almost nobody realizes they've quietly stopped doing. Number 4, going months, sometimes years, without doing a single thing that specifically challenges your leg muscles to work against resistance. Walking is wonderful for your heart, but walking on flat ground at a comfortable pace does not ask your quadriceps or your glutes to work hard enough to maintain their strength once you're past 60. Muscles operate on a simple rule: use it intensely enough or lose it. And after 60, your muscles become measurably harder to reach. A phenomenon researchers call anabolic resistance, meaning your body needs a stronger signal than it used to in order to maintain the same amount of tissue. Here is where the research gets remarkable. In one of the most striking studies ever conducted on this subject, published in JAMA, researchers put frail nursing home residents with an average age in their 90s through just 8 weeks of high-intensity resistance training focused on their leg muscles. Strength increased by an average of 174%. Muscle area in the thigh increased by 9%. Walking speed improved by 48% in people who were, on average, 90 years old. If muscle can respond that dramatically at 90, the muscle loss so many people accept as inevitable is often just undertrained tissue that hasn't been asked to work. You don't need a gym for this. A resistance band, a sturdy chair for supported squats, or slow, controlled sit to stand repetitions, 2 to 3 times a week, 10 to 15 minutes at a time, send your legs the exact signal. Walking alone does not. And the fuel your muscles use to actually rebuild after that kind of effort is something most people are also quietly running short on, which brings us to the next habit. Now, if this is the kind of research you wish someone had shown you sooner, take a second and subscribe to this channel, because this is exactly what we cover every week, the kind of information that rarely gets a full explanation in a 15-minute doctor's appointment. And if there's someone in your life whose legs and whose independence this could help protect, send them this video today. It might be the most useful thing you share with them all year. This next one hides inside your normal breakfast. Number 3, quietly under-eating protein, especially in the morning. This is one of the most common and most consequential habits on this list because it doesn't feel like a problem in the moment. A piece of toast, a bowl of cereal, coffee. It's easy, it's familiar, and it's almost entirely missing the one nutrient your leg muscles depend on to repair and rebuild themselves overnight. The International Protage Study Group, made up of researchers and clinicians specializing in aging, reviewed the evidence and now recommends that adults over 65 consume at least 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight every day, noticeably more than the standard recommendation designed for younger adults, because aging muscles simply needs a stronger nutritional signal to keep rebuilding at the same pace. Most people in this age group eat barely half of that, and they eat almost none of it at breakfast, loading nearly all their protein into dinner instead. The problem is that your muscles can only use so much protein for repair at any one sitting, somewhere in the range of 25 to 30 grams. Whatever comes in beyond that at a single meal is mostly burned for energy rather than used to rebuild tissue. Spreading that amount across each meal, eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, chicken, fish, or legumes, gives your legs a steady supply of raw material throughout the entire day, instead of one large, mistimed delivery at dinner. Eggs, dairy, and poultry in particular are rich in leucine, an amino acid that plays an outsized role in actually switching on muscle repair, which is part of why these foods show up so consistently. In the research on aging muscle, skip protein consistently, particularly at breakfast, and your body slowly starts pulling from the muscle you already have, just to get by, quietly trading strength you've already built for the energy it needs right now. Let me tell you about Frank, because his story is exactly why I wanted to include this one. Frank is 76, a retired high school teacher from Asheville, North Carolina, and for years his breakfast was black coffee and a piece of toast, the same thing he'd eaten since his working days. A habit so old it never occurred to him to question it. He wasn't underweight. He didn't look unwell. If anything, he looked like an ordinary, healthy 76-year-old man. But his daughter, a physical therapist, noticed something small on a visit home. He was starting to push off the arms of his chair every time he stood up, something he'd never done before. A tiny compensation his body had quietly built to cover for strength it no longer had. When she looked at his actual eating pattern across a typical week, the gap was obvious almost immediately. They added eggs and Greek yogurt to his mornings and shifted one larger dinner portion earlier into the day, splitting it more evenly instead. Within a few months, he told her, almost sheepishly, that he'd stopped needing the chair arms. You're doing this one every time you walk from the kitchen to the couch, and it adds up to far less than you'd think. Number 2, underestimating how little you actually walk in a normal day. Most people assume that going about their normal routine, errands, housework, a bit of gardening, adds up to meaningful activity. Often it doesn't come close, especially once a routine settles into the same short paths around the same rooms day after day. A study out of Harvard, published in JAMA Internal Medicine, tracked over 16,000 women with an average age of 72 using accelerometers for a full week, then followed their health outcomes for years afterward. Women who averaged around 4,400 steps a day had a 41% lower risk of death during the study, compared to women averaging only 2,700 steps, and the benefit kept climbing until it leveled off at around 7,500 steps, well short of the mythical 10,000 step goal you've probably heard quoted for years, a number that, according to the researchers themselves, was never based on any real scientific study to begin with. The steps themselves aren't magic. They're a proxy for exactly the kind of repeated, load-bearing leg movement that keeps your calves, quads, and hips engaged throughout the day, over and over, in a way no single workout can replace. If your daily step count has quietly dropped over the last several years, and for most people it does drop without you consciously deciding to move less, your legs are getting a fraction of the stimulation they used to, spread across none of the hours in your day instead of most of them. A short walk after a meal, parking a little further away, or simply pacing during a phone call instead of sitting through it are small enough changes that they rarely feel like exercise, which is exactly why they're easy to sustain. And the last habit on this list has nothing to do with steps at all, which is exactly why almost nobody sees it coming. And now, number 1, the one I promised you at the beginning, the habit that has almost nothing to do with exercise, and the one almost nobody connects to leg strength at all, not getting enough sunlight and running low on vitamin D as a result. Researchers using data from the English longitudinal study of aging looked at more than 4,000 community-dwelling adults with an average age of nearly 70 and found that those with low vitamin D levels had significantly weaker grip strength and significantly worse scores on a standard physical performance test that includes walking speed, a repeated chair rise task, and balance. 3. Measures that live almost entirely in your legs. Separately, a well-known meta-analysis published in BMJ, pooling data from 7 separate randomized trials, found that supplementing vitamin D in older adults reduced the risk of falling by 19%. Vitamin D isn't just a bone vitamin, the way most people were taught to think of it decades ago. Your muscle cells, including the ones in your thighs and calves, have receptors that respond directly to it, and without enough, those cells simply don't contract or repair as efficiently, no matter how much you walk or how carefully you eat. If you spend most of your time indoors, wear sunscreen every time you step outside, or live somewhere with long winters, this may be quietly working against your legs in a way that has nothing to do with how often you exercise. 10 to 15 minutes of midday sunlight on your arms and legs, a few times a week, weather and skin type permitting, is often enough to make a measurable difference, and it costs nothing at all. So here's where that leaves you. 5 ordinary habits: sitting too long without a break, going without any resistance for your legs, under-eating protein, walking far less than you think, and getting far less sunlight than your muscles actually need. None of them announce themselves, and that's exactly why they're fixable the moment you know to look for them. Because unlike so much else about aging, every one of these 5 responds to a small, deliberate change, often faster than people expect. Carol, the woman from the beginning of this video, still isn't a fan of the reminder to stand up every half hour. But 8 months after she started setting one, her afternoon stiffness is barely a memory, and the stairs in her own home stopped feeling like an obstacle. A quick note, this video is for general education, not personalized medical advice, so talk with your own doctor before changing your activity, diet, or supplement routine, especially if you have an existing health condition or take medication that could interact with any of it. Subscribe if this was worth your time, and tell me in the comments which of these 5 habits you think has quietly crept into your own routine, and which one you're going to tackle first. I read every answer, and I'll see you in the next one.